Franz, you need the microphone. Yeah.
Behind there. That's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this open forum titled The Ecosystem of Digital Cooperation in Development. And also a big welcome to viewers who are joining us online. My name is Marianne Knaru. I am the project leader for the Global University Academy, a consortia of universities and other stakeholders working together to increase access to higher education for refugees, displaced learners and their communities through digital and hybrid solutions. And I am very excited to moderate this session, which is organized by the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the University of Oslo, and Basic Internet Foundation. And with me on stage, I have a stellar panel representing various actors of the digital ecosystem that we want to highlight here today, from government agencies, NGOs, and academia. And also, as my co-moderator is Joseph Knoll from the University of Oslo, who will be keeping track of everything that's going on online. And we have Tale Jordbakke, Head of Section for Partnership at the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. We have Franz Weizsäcker, Digital Policy Expert at the German Agency for International Cooperation. Catherine Kimambo, Founder and Executive Director of the youth-led NGO African Child Project in Tanzania, focusing on digital public infrastructure in education and inclusion. And Thomas Årheim, representing Youth Coalition on Internet Governance. And we have the president of the University of Oslo, Svein Stølen. And last but not least, we have Meklit Mintesino, head of the e-She project at the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia, joining us online. And before I give the word to our panelists, I will shortly introduce the context for and the goal of this session. Because today, 2.6 billion people remain offline without access to internet, and this digital exclusion really translates into lack of access to essential services. That limits opportunities and deepens inequality. So the purpose of the session is really to highlight how the different actors can contribute to building an inclusive digital ecosystem for development, and to demonstrate how digital public infrastructure can serve as a cross-cutting foundation for public services, from health information in schools to digital access for communities. And also, what I hope that we will accomplish throughout the session is to also think about how we can go from words to concrete action as we move forward. And each panelist will now have 3 minutes to highlight their role in the digital ecosystem and how their institution or organization can contribute to closing the digital divide. And I will give you a little wave once you're approaching your 3 minutes. So I want to start with you, Tale. The Norwegian government has been quite active, I would say, in this space, and now also the host of this conference. How do you see NORAD's role in the ecosystem? Tale?
First of all, thank you for having NORAD in this panel. In NORAD, we believe that achieving the SDGs can only be done by unlocking opportunities through digital transformation. And digital solutions are key to improve people's life at scale. And it's even more important in these times where the funding for the development sector is cutting. And to answer the panel's question, how to increase access to digital public infrastructure, we believe the answer lies in digital public goods. These are inclusion, collaboration, scalability, and they will prevent vendor lock-in. By breaking down silos, reducing fragmentation, and promoting collaboration and transparency, we can achieve more and ensure that no one is left behind. Norway has been involved from the start, as a founding member of the Digital Public Goods Alliance and through investments in open sustainability solutions across sectors such as health, education, and public administration. DPI now also connects long-term development, humanitarian efforts, democracy, and human rights. That's why it's crucial to base DPI on open, non-commercial solutions that counter tech monopolies and promote democratic principles. I believe that Norway here have an advantage. We do have high credibility because we contribute with funding and do not have our own commercial interests. NORAD and Norway support solutions like MOSIP and OpenCRVS and fund initiatives like the World Bank's ID4D. We collaborate with partners such as co-develop to allocate financing mechanisms and ensure DPG's sustainability. To meet these challenges, we need to be working closely with governments and private sector to share responsibility for maintaining and developing this infrastructure. At the same time, it's important to be honest that our capacity is limited. Therefore, we must use our resources wisely, support cross-sectorial solutions, and focus on normative work, capacity building, and institutional strengthening, not just technology. We must also continue to be a bold and visionary donor, willing to take risk where others cannot, and use our position to mobilize more partners and create collaborative funding mechanisms. In conclusion, Norway and NORAD will continue to champion open, inclusive digital public goods as a foundation for DPI, ensuring access, information, services, and opportunities for all, across sectors and borders. Together, we can build an ecosystem where DPI serves as a tool for equity and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolle, for this. And Frans, what about you? How does this look from your perspective?
Yes, thank you very much. So my name is Frans Weizsäcker, and I'm heading our economic and digital portfolio of the GIZ office of the African Union. And this is based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And in GIZ, we are a company that is owned by the German government and works on behalf of mostly German and European governments for the sustainable development goals in our partner countries. And Africa is probably the biggest focus because there's also the fastest growth of internet penetration that we have. And in my role, I work together with the African Union Department for Infrastructure and Energy and working on harmonizing the digital policies in Africa on the continent with the 55 member states of the African Union. GIZ is also endorsing these principles that you just mentioned on open infrastructures, accessible infrastructures, where it can be open source when it comes to software development, or open access when it comes to internet offerings. And these principles that we endorse are also, we have this partnership with NORAD on the Digital Public Good Alliance, which I very much support. And when it comes to the increasingly important topic of digital sovereignty, of how governments can remain sovereign in a digital age and then avoid too many political dependencies that are derived from technological dependencies. And in that sense, we in Europe can play a big role in creating this independence by providing and sharing elements for a sovereign government. As we in GIZ, we typically work with our governmental partners together to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But of course, also we are supporting quite a few of grassroots organizations that are providing very concrete, tangible solutions, like in Cameroon. We have also community network projects that are providing internet access for communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frans. And Catherine, you have previously highlighted the importance of skills, and not just technical solutions in your work. Can you tell us a little bit about the African Child Project and how what your take on this is?
So there's a lot that the African Child Project is doing in regards to skills and access. We have like 2 flagship projects in Tanzania, and our first flagship project is the School Connectivity Project, where we connect schools in rural Tanzania to internet, making sure that we are not only providing access, but also put into perspective things like devices, also skills and content. Because at the end of the day, when we are speaking about digital public infrastructure, I think there's a notion that we only put the infrastructure there, but things again like content is missing, skills is also relevant, but also devices. So with school connectivity, we went all out in terms of seeing how we are impacting marginalized communities, but also making sure that we are having a whole multi-stakeholder approach in regards to how do we not work in silos, involve the government of Tanzania, but also bring in mobile network operators, but also work alongside fellow civil society organizations, because we know the way how huge Tanzania is. So we work in 20 regions across Tanzania. We've connected 200 schools, but also seeing how we are integrating ICT in learning, and also how are we impacting communities that are surrounding schools, because for us we are envisioning schools as a gateway for also connecting communities that are outside the school premises. So for us, we've had, I think, a lot of success in terms of having multi-stakeholder approach in everything that we do in regards to our project, but also the policies in Tanzania. I think the way we are saying harmonization of policies. How are we making sure that the policies are favorable in terms of advancing ICT? Because then again, we're having a lot of discussions in policies and how can we better have effective policies on ground. But also, I think our government is now seeing the importance of not only having policies on paper, but also implementing the resolutions that are written in the policy. I think now that we are coming from the African IGF, where we were discussing different resolutions that the Dar es Salaam Declaration, we are seeing there's a lot of effort that is also coming up in regards to investing in local talents, but also pioneering local solutions across Tanzania. So there's a lot that is happening, and we are happy that we are able to see now there's a shift of perspective in terms of multi-stakeholder initiative and involvement of civil society in such platforms, but also recognizing that big ideas also come from grassroots. So we are seeing that recognition and also involvement from the government of not only working in silos or having those us working independently and the government working independently, but we are seeing all of us coming together in terms of bridging the digital divide as a collective.
Thank you very much. Thomas, you're representing youth today.
So it seems, yeah.
Well, also with Catherine, I would say. So what is your perspective taking this from the youth side?
Well, thank you very much. Well, I can start off by saying I'm a part of what I'm representing is a youth coalition on internet governance. And this is one of the IGF dynamic groups that the IGF kind of facilitates for. And what we try and do is that we try to connect engaged youth from all over the world. And the only way we can do that is obviously through the internet, through an open internet. So the way we work is that we have, on the board, we have one representative from each region, the UN-recognized region of the world, meaning that you will basically get perspectives from any type of culture, any type of background, all walks of life. And that is the idea. Because what we really want to focus on is to make sure that digital public infrastructure is inclusive by design and not just by afterthought. And what I mean by that is that in today's age, we have so much power of hindsight already. And that means that other countries that want to increase their or develop their public infrastructure can learn from the failures of previous initiatives, but also, perhaps more importantly, learn from the successes, and maybe allow that to leapfrog into a more interconnected and more access to open internet. And since, yes, like you said, I'm here to provide some sort of youth perspective on digitalization, I thought I'd like to start this off by relating it to my own experience as a digital native. Perhaps I dare say, well, maybe not the only digital native here, but one of the only digital natives here. And I have this vivid memory from how this infrastructure, or this development in infrastructure, has impacted my education growing up. Because if we go back a few years to when I was in high school, I started in 2015, which is a full decade ago now, to be fair. But my year group was the pilot project year group for introducing iPads in the school instead of using textbooks. You know, it's an initiative to start digitalizing the classroom. And of course, there was plenty of pushbacks and skepticism. You know, parents were worried about screen time. Teachers were worried about losing the crucial battle in the classroom for attention. And of course, these issues had to be taken seriously. And I mean, yeah, I'll be the first one to admit that there were maybe some, you know, late hours in a Monday afternoon where my attention drifted to apps and games on the iPad that probably weren't that educational. But overall, I would say that this project, for us, and the way we experienced it, turned out to be a huge success, because it really did change the way we were being taught in the classroom. We were more interconnected, we had more interactiveness, and we were more productive throughout our working week. We also found that it opened up a whole new world of learning. Like, we had access to real-time information, multimedia resources, and knowledge, and all the knowledge that the World Wide Web possesses at our fingertips in the classroom. And just to put this into maybe a generational perspective, I very distinctly remember showing my now late grandfather one of my end-of-year papers, topical research papers. And he almost couldn't believe it, because he was in high school in the 1950s. So if he were to put together, what he said is that if he were to put together a piece of paper like this, he'd have to not only comb through dozens and dozens of books, but he had to spend hours and hours in the physical library to get all the sources and get all the material. And this is a moment that's really stuck with me, not just because it shows how much has changed in a relatively short amount of time, but because it reminded me that access to the right type of tools, digital tools, with then having the infrastructure backing them up, fundamentally shifts what's possible, especially in education. And that is what DPI really should be. And then, like you said, there are still billions of people who don't have access to internet. And when you see these micro examples of how it can look in the field, it really puts into perspective how important it is to really develop this and make sure that everyone has this, that it's inclusive, so that everyone has access to this gift that we have, which is the internet. And I'll leave it at that for now, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And I think it's safe to say that the future is in pretty safe hands. And going towards the universities, your intervention, Thomas, really, it highlights the inequalities that lack of access creates. And remembering also from the pandemic how soon Norwegian schools, European schools managed to kind of pivot and just be online within 2 days. And then the example that we saw when visiting rural areas in Uganda, schools were completely shut down for 2 years with no learning really happening at all. And the consequences of that, you can just only imagine, right? So being on the topic of education, Svein, You've taken the initiative to establish actually the Global University Academy a little over a year ago, but the University of Oslo has a proud history, I would say, of initiatives connected to this topic that we are exploring today. Could you say a little bit about how this looks from the University of Oslo's side?
I should first of all say that I'm representing the less young here, of course. I'm not native digital, but I lived through the whole thing, using punching cards initially to program different things. So, university has been deeply involved, really, in the creation of the digital world that we see today. And I can see that, you can see that on the outside of the hall here, because Josef and his people has something about the history of digitalization in Norway and at the university. I think that shows the power of research, because you need to be at the forefront of development. That's at the heart of a university, but then, of course, you need to take the knowledge into use as well. And then education is really what we need to do. ICT is obviously large at the University of Oslo, and I think it's a big challenge, even in Norway, to secure that the digital divide is not opening up too large. If you go to Europe, the challenge is even huger. And then, of course, if you go beyond Europe, it's really a huge challenge. So for that reason, we have tried to go into an initiative where we try to collaborate on giving education to refugees where the refugees are. So we have an aim to contribute to the 15 by 30 goal of the UNHCR and a modest goal of contributing to 1 million refugees before 2038. ICT is obviously important in that respect. It's about giving people internet access, of course, as we say here today, but also about capacity building. Yep. So what we try to do is to say that no one can do everything, but everyone can contribute to some extent. We try to partner up with different universities. We are about 20 universities from 4 continents. We partner up with UNHCR, UNICEF, and so on, and we try to build on lifelong learning platforms to give micro-credentials that can be stacked and then can be scalable. So we try to lower the threshold for universities to take part, to contribute with programs that gives employability, and then to have an ecosystem kind of thinking. Break down silos. I hear that from several panelists here today. We are starting in Jordan, close to the border to Syria, in Azraq and Satari, educational offers in ICT by Al Hussein Technical University. And then we hope that what we do in one space, which is a global, how to say, way of thinking on the educational offer, can be transferred to other places, like in Uganda, where we were in Adjumani, but of course then the challenge is quite different. In Jordan, UNHCR is in charge of camp. Save the Children Jordan is the implementing partners, giving us the classrooms and the internet. Adjumani, there's a much bigger challenge, and we can talk more about that later, I guess.
Do you want to highlight some other examples from the University of Oslo? Do you want to highlight some other examples from the University of Oslo?
I think that was talking about global goods, the health information system program is extremely important. I mean, it's an impressive offer that's been developed for many years, and I think it's also an inspiration for what we try to do in here today. And also Josef has a great initiative also on contributing to giving access in general. Thank you.
And turning to our online panelist, Meklit, you are project manager for the eShe, and it's an Ethiopian initiative that uses e-learning to strengthen higher education across all universities. Could you tell us a little bit about the initiative and how this is helpful for students and learners?
Okay, thank you, Marianne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Actually, I'm honored to be part of this panel discussion. Actually, my initial plan was to join you in person, but I couldn't make it due to the delay in my visa. Anyways, thanks to technology, I'm able to join you from the comfort of my home. So a brief introduction about myself. My name is Meklit Muntasnot. I'm from Ethiopia, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the e-learning for strengthening higher education project under the Ministry of Education. So before discussing how our work is contributing to the digital public infrastructure development, I would like to give you a highlight of the project, what we have been doing, what are our objectives and what we want to achieve through this project. So actually the ISHI project, we call it ISHI, is the e-learning for strengthening higher education project. It is a national initiative. It's designed to improve the quality, accessibility, inclusion, and resilience of higher education, mainly by leveraging digital education. And for the past 3-4 years, we've been implementing it in partnership with Ethiopian Ministry of Education, Arizona State University, a local implementing partner called Shone, and the MasterCard Foundation. They are our financial partners. Actually, they're the one who supported the project. So for the past 3 years, we have been working on policy, on digital education policy, infrastructure, system, and capacity building, and I would say we have achieved a great success. So actually the first thing or the first problem that we have been tackling is the policy and the framework issue. So in Ethiopia, actually before this project, we didn't have a policy that governed digital education or that governed online education. So to tackle that problem, we have managed to develop a national e-learning policy, institutional guidelines, directives, and even we have managed to establish e-learning at a directorate level in every university. Ethiopia has 50 public universities, so currently all these 50 public universities have a directorate that leads digital education or the digital education initiative. That's what we have been doing when it comes to policy. Additionally, the other problem that we have been observing was lack of a learning management system and student information systems. So in partnership with Arizona State University, we have customized and rolled out a learning management system for the 50 public universities. So currently, all the public universities have their own learning management system and as well student information system. So that's the other success we mentioned in this project. And the third intervention area was infrastructure. Actually, we've been establishing resource centers, online resource centers where instructors produce their contents, where students access the contents. So we established the 7 multimedia studio online resource centers in 7 public universities. And the last one is related with capacity development. Actually, after having the system, after having the policy, after having the infrastructure, the students and the instructors need to know how to operate the system and how to benefit from the system. So in this regard, we have managed to train to provide digital skill training for over 250,000 students from all the 50 public universities, and close to 20,000 instructors were trained on how to design digital content, on how to facilitate online classes. So that's what we have been doing. Actually, initially, we started this project, or we started the SHE project as a vertical approach when it comes to this digital public infrastructure, but currently we're evolving horizontally. We're working with different sectors, with the health sector, with the employment sector, and with other sectors, so that the youth, especially the youngsters, can benefit from the project. So recently we're partnering with, we're partnering with the Prime Minister Office to cascade the 50 million coders program. So currently we're facilitating that program, and actually Ethiopia is training 5 million young people so that they can able to design and code. So we're also facilitating that, and we're also working with high schools and regional education bureaus to connect the universities with high schools so that students from remote area can access the content or can access digital services. So this is what we have been doing for the past 3-4 years. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Miklit, for this very inspiring intervention and also highlighting how you can, in practice, go from the vertical to the horizontal approach. And I know for sure that I want to hear more about all of the things that you said after the session, and hopefully you all will too. Tale and Franz, you're both representing government agencies here in this panel, and reflecting on the introductions that we just heard, and understanding also the importance of partnership, working across, but also really involving the whole of society to make sure that we have a truly an inclusive system. How can your agencies or government programs be better at really making those connections and also give space for civil society actors? Tale, do you want to go first?
Sure. I do think that we as a government agency can play a role. Firstly, by being clear on that the policies and principles we support are open source, exclusively open, and that it is the digital public goods for DPI, like the DHS2 that was mentioned here, that NORAD has been supporting for years. When we ensure that the digital development that we support are open source, it can be used by many and be adaptable. So secondly, we can also contribute to mobilize and contribute funding. We need to work on these challenges together, and as an agency, Norwegian government agency, we have been taking early risk by providing catalytic funding for digital public goods, and by ensuring pool resourcing, working through mechanisms like Digital Public Goods Alliance 50 and 5, working with co-develop, we can make sure that we avoid duplication and maximize impact. Thirdly, I think we can support capacity building and knowledge sharing by investing in local expertise and strengthening institutional frameworks. We enable countries to implement, adapt, and sustain digital solutions over time. And lastly, I think that we can act as a bridge builder between sectors and convener by bridging together stakeholders from government, civil society, private sector, and international partners. We talked about a lot of ideas just before back on stage here today. We help to ensure that solutions are not developed in silos, but are interoperable and meet real needs across sectors like health, education, and financial inclusion, as we heard about here today. So all in all, I think better coordination, curation of the DPI ecosystem means committing to openness, partnerships, and long-term sustainability so that digital transformation truly delivers for everyone, everywhere.
Thanks. And Franz, do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure.
Yeah, so you asked about how we involve civil society in these questions. And of course, as a governmental agency, when we cooperate with other countries, we start talking with the government. That's in most cases the starting point and also our basis or justification to be there. But then at the same time, depending on the context, we set up different types of multi-stakeholder partnerships. So in the case of digital policy development, it is actually, I mean, it's not just about developing a policy, but it should be an inclusive policy. So therefore, we do consult with private sector, with civil society, and depending on the context, with researchers, academia, and for the policy consulting. And then also in the implementation, if you look at, it depends very much on the context. We always design it according to form follows function, of course. If it's a municipal level interaction or a national level, depending on that, we set up different types of multi-stakeholder partnerships. And then what we also have in some cases is a direct funding mechanism for civil society. So with the African Union, we set up the African Union Civic Tech Fund, where we currently have 30 grantees from across the continent, from 26 different countries, that are developing a solution, that have developed solutions that are working, that promote civic engagement and participation, and we're providing funding and expertise to grow and scale these initiatives by the civil society. So there are various mechanisms, and I think we really need to see in the context: is it education, is it health, and so on? What is the most suitable form of engagement with civil society?
Great, thank you. And Thomas and Catherine, I wanted to ask you, if hearing all of these interventions and discussions that we've had, if you were Minister of Digitalization or Minister of International Development, what would be the first thing that you did?
So for me, if I were Minister of Digitalization, first I'd want to understand why, maybe why certain things aren't working, because I think there's a tendency to always come up with a new standard, come up with a new policy. I think in Tanzania we have this saying that we have good policies on paper, but when it comes to implementation, there's equally to very few that is implemented from the policies. So I'd really want to understand why certain things aren't working. But also when it comes to investing in grassroots ideas, I think there's a lot that is happening on ground. There's a lot of great ideas that youth have, but we don't have resources, I think, to implement such ideas. So maybe trying to really dig deep and understand what are the great ideas. I think we have a good success with school connectivity because it was a grassroots initiative, but also we're experimenting with affordable solutions that are scalable, solutions that are fit for purpose. So I think having that understanding of what could be scalable on ground and not having these parachuting ideas where you come up with solutions that are high-end or of high cost that are not sustainable in the long run. I think I could also see what works on ground, but also overseeing implementation or harmonizing the policies, because currently we are having a lot of policies that are coming up, but also they are not harmonized. I want to see how we can have like a common understanding in terms of involving different stakeholders in the field to understand the policies, but also how are we coming in together in regards to bringing all the policies to life. But also something else that I'd invest in is in terms of funding. I think funding is a challenge when it comes to youth and how they are operating. So I think I'd invest more in youth. Because when it comes to us as youth, there's a lot of capacity building I feel that we're getting, but we are not getting a chance to do meaningful work. So maybe less on the capacity building and really funding our ideas in terms of how we can accelerate connectivity and digital inclusion in Tanzania, but also just, I think in terms of data, I'd really want to understand when we are saying we've reached maybe this age group, is there data for it? Because I think there's a lot of data that is missing, so I'd invest much in having data that really speaks to the results that we are seeing, because there's a lot of, we are seeing a lot of stories, like there's this that is happening, we've reached this amount of people, but when for us we are working on ground, we are not seeing the shift that is there on the global stages. But also we've been dialoguing a lot. There's a lot of discussions that are happening, but I'd move more into action. How are we moving from dialogue to action? How are we being more action-oriented? Because I think there's a lot of dialogue that is happening globally, but even here, after dialogues and all this, what's happened, what's next when you go back to our original countries? Are we implementing ideas? Are we coming up with results? Or are we only maybe coming up with different resolutions? And then when we are meeting again next year, we're having another resolution. So I think if I was a Minister of Digitalization, I'd move from dialogue action and really spotlighting the different innovations that are there on ground to bring them to the global presence, and maybe that could also bring a change in the digital inclusion and divide.
Hear, hear. Thomas.
Yeah, no, here. If I was minister for a day, well, let's say since I don't represent any political party and I haven't yet, gotten any vested economic interests, or I can just go from a blank slate, I would say that I think it is really important, and that's why I say this, because I think it's really important to focus that this type of new technology and development in the countries where it happens also stays in the countries where it happens, where they also don't just become users of technology from foreign aid and foreign companies that do direct investments, but that they also then own this themselves, so that they can share that knowledge and that they can start using that as a part of their industry, that it becomes integrated into their local systems, and that this creates a form of long-term growth for them. So in a sense, which probably would make me a really bad minister, you'd do it without any strings attached, but we'll see if that passes in Congress. Yeah, and like we talked about before, out of these billions of people who are without access, a majority, like in these regions and places we're talking about, the majority of the youth or young population in the world is located here. So it's really an investment in the future as well, because these regions will these are skills that will last for decades for them, and that's why it's really important to get them connected now, get them connected so that they can use this for the next 5-6 decades. And pass this on and really integrate this into their, integrate this, yeah.
Thank you. And Svein, you can also give us your take on if you were a minister for a day.
But I have power, so I would like to say that I try to be a cut the crap, just do it rector. And I think that what we really need is to be less afraid of failure. We need to try to utilize the power of an institution, and then I think all has to take the same take. How can we do better? For university, I believe that to utilize the power to take the knowledge into use, because we're quite good at research, we're quite good at education, but we have to be a little bit out of the comfort zone in order to transform that knowledge and competence into action. For that reason, I believe in this ecosystem type of thinking, because often when universities work, they work alone, or they work together with other universities, but I don't think that is going to solve many challenges. We need to work across sectors. That challenges universities, but it also challenges the other actors, so to break down the silos. So for that reason, in the Global University Academy, we recently launched a policy paper where we said that, okay, universities are so we are not really flexible, to be honest. So there's a lot of challenges that are on us self, but I think it's also a lot of challenges on other part. Especially, I would like to see that the ministries and the politicians, they understand that the universities could be used more efficiently in some of these global collaborations. But then they have also to give them that task. When we talk with universities in other parts of the world, they say that this is not really within our mandate. I think it should be within the mandate. And for me, that's also about educating students in our own countries. Because in the Global University, we hope to use the students as part of the classroom, part of the tutoring system, and so on. And if we are going to educate students with a global mind, that's the way to do it. So I believe in this ecosystem, and we should push that and break down silos, in my opinion.
I think that's a major takeaway from this session, to break down the silos and figure out how to work more efficiently together. I want to open up for some questions from the Zoom. And there's one from Francis Thompson to Thomas and Svein. Does the ease of information access to children and students make them less likely to internalize the information, as in there is less need to digest fully the information and context, or even remember it for recall, because it is so accessible and easy to find again online?
Sorry.
That was a bit unclear.
Can you repeat the first part? I got the last part.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I'll try again. Does the ease of information access to children and students make them less likely to internalize the information?
Okay, I think I do think I.
Yeah, no, I got it too.
So, I mean, maybe, probably. So, I mean, we talk about now, maybe with this, again, like I was talking about earlier in the classroom, this attention span. And, you know, there are concerns now that with, you know, youth and younger people these days getting more and more exposed to really fast-paced, flickering images and then very short-pitch information, that, you know, the concern for maybe more in academia is that, you know, you're not capable of reading a full dissertation anymore, you're not capable of reading a full book. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think I don't want to, you know, sound all the alarms right now. And what we're really talking about is for people to get to the, you know, that might be a late stage problem for a very small part of the world population, if you look at it that way. But I think easier access to information as a whole is a good, and that's a force for good, and definitely something we should strive towards. Again, this will maybe later be a really good way for us to use this type of hindsight, like I was saying in the beginning, that you can maybe leapfrog and you can avoid some pitfalls, and so I think it's really important to then, you know, we'll keep an eye on this. We'll make sure we keep reading our books, despite being on TikTok or other platforms, but also then take the lessons and really try and learn from them and not just observe them. I don't know if that answers the questions. Maybe. Sven, what do you think?
I think you answered that very well. I think that the attention span is a worry.
Yeah.
But the access to information is not really a worry. I'm not very good at remembering anything. I've never been. But I manage anyway. And I think that what we need to be able to, I mean, how much more I can do today than I could do when I was a PhD student in 1988. It's amazing, and I think we are going in the same direction. We have to harness the tools, we have to harness the technology, and we have to use it. And strictly, I believe that most of our students understand they can't fool themselves. Because if they use the new equipment in the wrong way, they're not learning. They understand that. I mean, the students are bright. So I think that we shouldn't overestimate the challenges. Some part of the student population probably could be tempted, but still, in general, I'm quite optimistic about the student and about technology.
Great. And also, if there are questions in the audience, there is a microphone on the side, and feel free to take the microphone. But while waiting for participants to maybe take the mic, I want to ask a question to Meklit that's coming from the Zoom chat. How do you see the pathway from universities to schools and communities? Meklit, you can answer that, and after we will open the mic here in the room. Meklit?
Sure, Marine, thank you. Yeah, that's an important question. So as I mentioned earlier, currently we're working with universities. Actually, in Ethiopia, relatively, the universities have a better infrastructure, internet service, and they also have well-trained personnel. So it's we believe that universities are the gateways. So once capacitating the universities, we can connect them with the higher schools and with the communities. For example, the universities have trained personnel or trained instructors. They have the infrastructure. They also have the resource. They can mobilize resources, or they can mobilize financial resources. So we're planning to connect them with the high schools and to the communities. For example, you can take a rural schools that are located in a rural area. So in that case, the universities are better positioned to support them. They can support support them in connectivity, they can support them in human resource, they can also support them in developing systems and infrastructures. So the universities are the gateways, and through that we can connect the schools and we can also serve the community. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And now we have 2 questions from the audience, and please state your name before your question and whom it is addressed to, and also please be brief. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm Pons Light from the Gambia NRI Focal Point, and also a board member of the Association for Progressive Communication and Joko Labs Banjul, the Gambia. My question goes to France and the lady from NORAD, and it's also connected with SEV. It's in regards to digital cooperation, which is a major part of the Global Digital Compact that is being implemented. I would like to know how both your agencies, GIZ and NORAD, work with academics in the global north to implement programs in the global south that also incorporates African universities, especially in terms of if you have to set up programs in rural areas that brings about connectivity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we'll take the other question as well, and then the panel will answer.
Yeah. My name is Muhammad Adedali. I'm Executive Director from Somali Civil Society platform called SONSA, based in Somalia. My question is to the all panelists. I'm thinking positively, digitally is okay, but negativity. Now, digital war started, cyber conflict started. So how in the future influence that barriers the ecosystem of digital cooperation and development? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So first questions to Tale and Frans. Which one want to go first?
I can start?
Yeah,
that's
great.
right. Thank you so much for the question. I believe that NORAD, for example, supports, like I've been mentioned, digital public goods, open source solutions. So the University of Oslo works together with our partners in India, the MOSIP digital ID platforms, and NORAD supports those and have been from the beginning. So we connect universities and academia with the digital public good, the DHS2, which is a health platform. We try to connect our partners, IIITB, in Bangalore in India with University of Oslo to go together and learn, and on request of partners and countries in the global south and countries south of Sahara and Africa. They have requested these kind of systems, and we connect the partners. We can support with the funding, but together we bring partners with knowledge and experience of rolling out and implementing these kind of systems that are open source, that can be built on something built elsewhere, but it can be adopted. It must be modified to the country itself, but it's a lot cheaper to start with a system that you don't have to develop. So that is one example how NORAD and Norway work with different countries in Global South and connect universities, which are so important to the knowledge that we share and the experience that are often built local and has to be built local.
Thank you. And Frans?
All right. Yeah, thank you, Poncelet, for your question on also the cooperation with universities, to work between universities from the north and the south to implement projects on connectivities. Actually, that's a topic very close to my heart. Coming from Berlin University of Technology, while I was a student, I was setting up back in 2003 in Kabul, Afghanistan, the computing center at Kabul University. So very hands-on work we did as a student there. But you're also right that we could be doing much more in this university cooperation. If you compare, for example, how this used to be done maybe in the United States, they have quite a few faculties from the United States that are implementing hands-on development projects in the Global South. And I think it's a good and successful mode. And in the German system, there is typically most university corporations work through the DART, the German Academic Exchange Service, and that was also the one that was funding the cooperation in Kabul that I mentioned earlier. But indeed, where we can and where it makes sense, we should be involving universities. Maybe one more example from the European level, as part of the Global Gateway project, we have the Medusa cable, and that's basically a cable connecting northern African universities to fiber optics internet infrastructure, and that is part of the agenda that is now being developed in Brussels on infrastructure and connectivity under the Global Gateway initiative.
Thank you very much. And then there was a question about how to make sure that we are still digitally connected and working together in a time where the world is increasingly in turmoil, I would say. Svein, do you have any reflections on?
I understand the question. I mean, I became rector 8 years ago. Everyone talked about the Sustainable Development Goals and the 3 O's: open science, open innovation, open to the world. And now we are talking about national interest, research security, and geopolitical issues. So to push forward and continue cooperation, so at the University of Oslo, we try to keep all doors open. I got a lot of criticism to work with China. We do. We try to work also on this Global University Academy at the present time, because it's more important than ever. It's more difficult, of course, but I don't have any other answer than that, but we really, really need to work different parts of sector and push towards collaboration.
Tolle, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, just to build on that, I think also in these times we have to work together and collaborate to do more with less, because there will be less funding. And actually, in terms of digital transformation, this might be an opportunity, because these are the leapfrog possibilities that can actually be done through technology. And if we build not silos, that has been said, but open source and shareable and digital public goods, then we can actually make more out of less. And I think that's more important than ever.
Yeah. Thomas, is this also something that you see when you discuss with your fellow youth representatives?
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what was just said. And in a world where things are getting more, like you say, in turmoil, and that's the focus. I think it's important to keep in mind that it's not like we want the internet to disappear, but we really want to be able to navigate the internet safely, and that means that for a lot of youth in today's reality, we're going to have to develop new skills and new tools to be able to surf online safely. And that's why you have it's really important to drive initiatives that increase media literacy or internet information literacy. You need to be able to know how to spot fake news, and that's going to be key moving forward for anyone who's surfing online.
Thank you very much. We are running out of time, so we're going to close off this session. So for all of you, you have, if you could sum up, but then also think about what is it that we need to do when we leave this room. Not just nice words, but what are some things that we can all just go out and do to make a difference? Catherine.
So for me, I still go back to the Dar es Salaam declaration that we had with the African IGF, where they were speaking about a unified voice, or African voice in global processes. So I think still as Africa, we still need that unified voice in global processes, because I still believe we still have the largest number of unconnected people in the global south. So having a unified voice, what are the plans that we have as a continent? And I think for me, going back home, I understand that the work that we do as African Child projects contribute very much in the key aspect of digital divide, the things like digital skills, connectivity. So we plan to do more of that. And I know with the different partners that we have and the desire that they have shown in terms of accelerating digitalization in Tanzania. So there's more that we are going to do. And hopefully when we meet in the next year of IGF, we'll have a lot of concrete and live examples on the ground of what we've done and how we've succeeded.
Thank you. I want to turn online. Meklit, what would be your final short remarks?
Thank you, Maureen. So actually, for me, digital public infrastructure, digital service is not just about technology. It's all about equity, inclusion, and access. And there are millions of people remaining disconnected, and those who couldn't access these services due to the existing situation, due to lack of infrastructure, due to lack of skill, and due to lack of support. So we need to come together to support them, especially in Ethiopia currently or under the Ministry of Education. We're advocating for public-private development partnerships, so bringing the public sector, which is the government, the development sector, and even the private sector in availing services or in availing digital services for the use, especially the use actually. You have mentioned earlier, majority of the population is using in Ethiopia and in Africa, and they need to be served, and they need to be included, and they need to benefit from this initiative. So my call to action is let's work together, especially we need to include the development and the private sector in enhancing digital services across Africa. So on our side, both the ministry and the project is open to collaborate with interested partners and to make digital service accessible to everyone. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Svein, some short final remarks.
I think we need bold visions. We need to continue to work hard and not look for the perfect system that solves everything, but go on the way and try to construct the airplane while flying, so to say. So we need to push forward.
It's a vivid picture. Tale?
I think collaboration. I think connectivity is important, but also the solution that we build have to be open and interoperability. We have to be able to build on each other's. We cannot build in every country different solution every time. It's too expensive. It's not smart. We need to be able to share open between each other.
Thank you. Frans?
Absolutely, those principles of openness, the principles for digital development are actually amazing. So you need to understand the existing ecosystem, design with the user, build for scale, be data-driven, be impact-driven. All these principles will make a good digital projects.
Perfect. And then, Thomas, you will have the final word.
Brilliant. I'll end it where I started and say that for this development to go forward, it has to be inclusive by design and not by afterthought. And the way to do that is through a multi-stakeholder approach. And I want to thank for a really good panel.
Thank you very much. And that's it from us. Thank you all for coming. And thank you to this wonderful panel, and also to the very energetic Josef Knoll at the University of Oslo for really making this event a reality today. I think it's safe to say that without you, this panel would not have been here. So let's give the panel a big applause, and thank you very much for coming.